Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for episode 3 of my Stoneburner mini campaign as we continue exploring this fun game that is currently live on Kickstarter. Seriously, folks, if you haven't backed it yet, you should go do so. Last time, Urin Stardoom was fleeing a demon that was trying to kill him after he tried to kill it first. He discovered that it was a little too strong for him. He was making his retreat, and he ran into his cousin, Valrar Goldendelver, and her protector, Dakar Ironclaw. And the three of them together defeated this demon, though not without taking a few hits themselves. They returned back to the settlement that they have begun resettling here in Kazab Baram, this sector of the Long Belt, and they rest and recover. Then, heading out together, they continue exploring the tunnels, and they find a large cavern with what appears to be a mine shaft in the center of the cavern. And there are, again, what appear to be some decommissioned mining bots. Well, they discover quickly that they are, in fact, not decommissioned mining bots, but mining bots that seem to be under the control of someone named Czar. This small goblinoid head pops out of one of these bots that are kind of almost like mech suits. They have a brief conversation about who actually owns this mine. Their discussion is interrupted by 4 dwarves entering from a different passageway and claiming this mine in the name of House Darkenaxe. And that is where we pick up, as Urin Stardoom looks to Valrar Goldendelver, his cousin, and says, "Really? House Darkenaxe is here? I thought we had at least a couple more days before the rock vultures started crawling their way around." Valrar smiles a little bit and says, "Darkenaxe has long been a friend of House Grandrock. Perhaps we can come to some arrangement." And she raises her voice and looks over at these 4 and says, "Greetings, friends of House Darkenaxe. I am Valrar Goldendelver, and this mine belongs to House Grandrock. Darkenaxe has no claim over it, but we are happy to have you here as allies of our ancient house. I think we should ask the Risk Oracle, what's the likelihood of these individuals being amenable to Valrar's claim that this mine belongs to House Grandrock? To use the Oracle, roll a die based on how likely you think the situation you are facing might be risky. So we have established, partially because of our World Spark roll at the end of last episode, that House Darkenaxe is an old ally of House Grandrock. So I think that is going to lower the risk factor, but I don't think that that means that it is therefore not risky at all. Because, as we know, old alliances can be broken, and House Grandrock has been somewhat quiet here in the Long Belt. And so it is possible that whatever arrangements they had with House Darkenaxe have lapsed. So I think I'm going to roll a d6. The situation is unlikely to be risky, but that does not mean that the answer will come back as a no, it's not risky at all. So let's roll this d6 and see what the Oracle tells us. Of course, I rolled a 6, which means the situation is perilous. You need to make a check. So when the Risk Oracle tells you to make a perilous check, this means that failing the check may prompt harsher consequences, which I think means that we could potentially be getting into a fight. Whatever alliance there was between House Darkenaxe and House Grandrock, it is old, and therefore perhaps not worthy of being observed anymore. So this lead dwarf in this expedition from Darkenaxe unseals the helmet and removes it. And there is this bearded face with these scars that run from underneath his eyes, down his cheeks, and almost to his ears. His beard is marred by these scars. Like the hair doesn't grow in. So there's like a patch above next to his ear, and then there's a patch below these scars. And he looks at Valrar and Urin and Dakar, and he says, "I am Dwahar Greyjaw of House Darkenaxe, and we do not recognize House Grandrock's presence here. House Grandrock has been silent for too long. Too long has House Grandrock left this mine in disrepair. Stand aside, fellow dwarves. Do not get in the way of House Darkenaxe." Urin, I think at that, can sense that Valrar, who has maybe a little bit of a temper, grips the stock of her battle rifle, and Urin rests a hand on her shoulder and is like, "Dwahar Greyjaw, welcome to our mine. I'm Urin Stardoom. We are heirs to Broker Longneck and House Grandrock. We agree with you that this place is not what it once was. And that's why we're here. We're here to reclaim this place. But I understand where you're coming from, friend, so I want to make a deal with you. We as heirs of House Grandrock would be willing to cede part of this mine to House Darkenaxe if you would be willing to reform the alliances of old. There are demons in these tunnels, and sure, we could spend time fighting one another, but wouldn't we all rather spend our time sending demons back to whatever abyss they came out of?" And he is going to attempt to make a perilous roll here and test willpower to see if he can talk their way out of this. So we are going to roll a d6 because Urin's willpower is a d6, and let's find out what happens. Another 6. So you greatly succeed. The higher the result, the better. Because this was a perilous check, that's very good. I'm glad that I got a good, strong success off of this. Valrar sort of looks over at Urin when he talks about ceding part of this mine to House Darkenaxe, and he just waves a hand like, "Let me finish." Dwahar Greyjaw thinks for a moment and says, "I suppose if what you say is true and there are demons in these tunnels, we would rather shed demon blood than that of kin. House Darkenaxe and House Grandrock were once great allies. Perhaps it is time to reframe that alliance, to restore it to its ancient glory." Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We are here to reclaim this place. I think that my cousin here would agree that there is much to be reclaimed, and there is plenty for us to be generous with. Valrar nods and says, "Yes. House Grandrock is not as strong as it once was, but it can be again. It will be again. And if you stand with us, we will remember that. We will remember you, Dwahar Greyjaw, as friend, as ally to the great House Grandrock." Dwahar Greyjaw nods and says, "I am amenable to reforming the alliance, and I believe my house will be pleased to know that House Grandrock will rise once more." So they're having this conversation back and forth, and there is a certain amount of joviality that has now been introduced into the air. And then, from one of those decommissioned mining bots, a voice says,
Excuse me, what does this mean for Zar? This was my mine, and now I'm afraid that, well, what is to become of me?
And I think the dwarves of House Darkenaxe turn and they train their weapons on this mech, and there's a like charging of their weapons as they see this small green head with long ears and goggles starting to cower back down. And Urin steps forward and says, hold on. Lower your weapons, friends. This is Czar, and I believe, Czar, if you would be agreeable, House Grandrock would like to offer you the position of foreman of this mine, at least our part of it. And he looks back at Valrar, and she kind of rolls her eyes a little bit. And Czar says,
Foreman of the mine? You want me to work with Dwarfkin?
Well, if you don't mind, I mean, you can continue operating these bots, but more dwarves are going to be here, and I think it's important for us to have someone who has some experience in these mines, who knows their way around, and I think you're that person, Czar. I think you're our man, our goblin man. How does that sound? And I think that Czar is probably amenable, but I think I need to roll. There is a little bit of apprehension on Czar's part. And so I'm going to roll again, another willpower. This is a D4 this time, and I rolled a 4. So you succeed, but there is a minor cost. I think the minor cost is that it ruffles the feathers of House Darkenaxe. And so Dwahar Greyjaw says, now wait just a minute here. We have just reformed the alliance between our houses, and now you're telling me that you have this goblin who is the foreman of your mine? You do not expect my miners to take orders from some goblin, do you? And Czar's like,
oh, orders, yes, orders. I have orders. Begin to mine.
And Urin sort of waves Czar off and says, no. Czar is the foreman of our part of the mining operation. You, of course, will appoint a foreman from your house, and together they will work things out. Do you find that agreeable, Greyjaw? He thinks for a moment and he says, yes, it is agreeable. But I think Urin detects that there is still a hesitance there. And I'll make note of it, as that means that there will probably be tension, because you're going to have a dwarf foreman on the Darkenaxe side and this goblin foreman on the Grand Rock side. And there's going to be potential for tension and drama there. So I don't think we need to pursue that anymore right now. We can just leave that out as a narrative thread that in the future, if some sort of complication came up, that would be a thread to pull on. So they spend the next few hours discussing the terms of this alliance with Dwahar Greyjaw. They reach a series of agreements on what this joint share of the mine is going to look like. And I think they reach a certain point where Valrar and Urin step aside, and Dwahar is conferring with his dwarves. And Urin is like, well, that went a lot better than I expected. Valrar nods and says, yes, it could have gotten ugly, but I don't think we're out of danger quite yet. Dwahar Greyjaw may be an honorable dwarf, but who knows what will happen once we step away. Cousin, elevating a goblin to foreman of our operation, that is going to be a tough stone to chew for our allies. I know, but I feel bad for the little guy. Like, he's lived out here for who knows how long by himself, and we come along and reclaim this mine, and I don't want to just kick him out. He deserves something. And, I think he's maybe a little crazy, but he was willing to talk to us. He didn't just attack us with the bots. I don't know, I feel like it seems like someone who'd be good to have around. An outside perspective, if you will. Yes, and I don't disagree with you, cousin. It puts us in a tenuous position with this new alliance. I think we're going to need to spend more time talking to this Greyjaw and working out details. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Look, why don't you continue these negotiations? You and Dakar can handle them. I'll continue exploring and see if I can find any more demons. After all, a good demon fight will bring us dwarves and maybe even Zar together. Val nods and says, yes, a little shared danger always helps when forging an alliance. Very well, cousin. I will remain here and continue the negotiations. You go and find us a demon to kill. No problem. I'm sure they're a dime a dozen around here. Urin is going to head off into the tunnels to continue exploring, while Valrar and Dakar remain behind to continue negotiations with House Darkenaxe. I think before they go, I wrote out a couple of new visions of glory for this session. And for Urin, it was to make an ally of Zar the Goblin, and we successfully did that. So he is going to gain an advancement. And then for Valrar, it was to form a peaceful alliance with House Darkenaxe. And I think from her standpoint, there is still a danger of House Darkenaxe fighting against them. But I don't think that's actually a genuine threat at the moment. We rolled a great success on that negotiation. So I believe that she has successfully formed that alliance. And so we can go ahead and roll advancements for both of them. For Urin, his advancement is a 4. Someone from your past is there to help you. Interesting. So I'm going to hold on to that and see if that comes up. For Valrar, her advancement is 15. Unlock a new ability. Ooh. So as the striker, she has the specialist ability. Other abilities, commander, booster, tactician, and Stoneburner, which she's not able to unlock yet because she doesn't have the Stoneburner rune. So let's look at Commander. When a team member is making a check, you may give them a tactical advice and give them the upper hand. Or Tactician. You may call for a flashback to introduce a new truth in the fiction where you planned in the past for something happening at this moment. Ooh, I like both of those, but I think I'm going to go with Commander because I feel like we are setting up Valrar as being a little bit more of the leader of this expedition, even though Urin is sort of our viewpoint character. So the Commander asset costs 2 to activate, so we'll just keep that in our back pocket there. Urin is going to go off by himself and continue exploring while his cousin continues these negotiations. So we are going to go ahead and roll a d8. I'm going to bypass rolling on the Risk Oracle for this next section, just because there have been a couple of like risky things here, and I just want to roll on the next point of interest. If it says to me that there might be some sort of risk there, then I will roll on the Risk Oracle, but otherwise I think I'm just going to glide past it on to the next point of interest. So here we go. D8, 3, Mining Records Office. Perfect. Okay. He steps away from the rest of the group. Valrar and Dwahar are deep in conversation. The 3 Darkenaxe dwarves are at this point a little bit more relaxed and have pulled up some crates and have started a small burner and are cooking beans or something on the burner, and maybe Dakar has joined them and they've pulled out some dice or cards or something like that, and they're just hanging out while the leaders hash out what's going to happen. And I think that Urin starts to make his way down this tunnel when he hears this like, and he turns and this small goblin pitter-patters up beside him and is like,
Where are you going? You're not staying?
Urin's like, look, Zar, I've got to keep exploring these tunnels, but I'll be back.
Well, look, I don't mean to be, needy, but I don't think the other dwarf kind like me very much, and if I stay here and you leave, what's to prevent them from,
Czar, my cousin Valrar is good people. She's not going to let anything happen to you. That would break the terms of the alliance that they're forming right now.
Yes, but maybe I could come with you. I can be quiet.
Urin looks down at the goblin and gives him a very questioning look and says, "Can you be?"
What? Yes, of course. You didn't know I was here when you first came in. No, I snuck up on you. If I wanted to, I could have activated my bots and tossed you right into the mine shaft, but I didn't, because I wanted to make friends.
Right. Friends. Look, I'll let you come with me as long as you stay quiet and stay behind me.
Yes, of course, yeah. I will be happy to be in your shadow. You won't even know I'm here.
I highly doubt that. And together, Urin and Czar are going to continue down the passageway. Further down this tunnel is another chamber. It's not as large as the chamber that they've just left behind, but it is warmer, noticeably warmer as they enter it. And unlike this previous cavern that had a singular mine shaft down the center of it, this smaller cavern with these almost reddish hued stones jutting out of the walls have 3 different mining shafts going in 3 different directions. And then there is another tunnel entrance on the other side of this cavern. There's also a small room here in this cavern. It's almost like a metal shed that has been constructed. And Urin, looking around this cavern, doesn't see any signs of demons here. And so he continues walking over towards this shed, and he kicks the door open a little bit and has his rifle at the ready and sort of peers inside. And it appears to be empty, though there seem to be a series of cabinets and drawers. And so he is going to start rifling through them and see what he finds. So I think we could go about this a couple different ways. I think we could roll on the world sparks to see if that gives us an idea. Or, and this is what I think I'm going to do, I'm just going to roll the loot die. So at the start of an expedition, you start with a D12 loot die, which steps down after each usage. To loot the room, roll your loot die and interpret the result. So our loot die is at a D10. I am going to take that D10, I'm going to roll it and see what he finds. And assuming he finds some sort of item, I'm just going to mark that down as mining paperwork. And that will be of some value in the future. So we'll go ahead and roll our D10, see what we get. A 10. Hey, dice are very happy with me today. So under our items, I'm going to write down mining paperwork, and we're going to mark that as a D10 item. That's great. And then I'm also going to decrement the loot die down to a D8. So he spends some time going through the cabinets and looking at them. After a little while, I think he turns to Czar and he says, "Czar, this may be weird, but do you read Dwarven?" Does he read Dwarven? Probably not. That seems like it would be very unlikely. So let's roll a D4 and see what we get. 1, which is no, and in fact, he does not read at all. So he's just like,
the scratchy bits over there? No, nope. Don't know what that says. Are they words?
Yeah, never mind. Just do me a favor and keep an eye out. I've got to go through these. And so Urin spends some time leafing through these pages, and basically they are mining records for the last several hundred years in this particular mine. After a while, he's like, these may actually be of use to us. So he packs them away in his pack and is going to continue exploring. Now is when we should ask the Risk Oracle. I think that, in fact, it's probably likely that there's going to be some danger. Because I kind of skipped the Risk Oracle on this past chamber, I think it is likely that there is some danger in the room to come. A 5, which is a perilous check. So yes, absolutely, there is danger ahead. And we should roll on our next point of interest, which will be a D10. A 4. Glorburb making their nest. I don't know what that means, but it sure sounds like danger to me. Urin and Zar continue making their way down through the next passage. And again, these passages are all slightly sloping down, and they're getting deeper and deeper towards the heart of this asteroid. And it is getting warmer and warmer. And then they emerge into another chamber. This massive, massive cave. And there are huge stalactites descending from the ceiling. There are stalagmites that are reaching up towards the ceiling. There appear to be quartz crystals growing out of the walls. And there seems to be some sort of channel running through the center of this cavern. There even looks as though maybe there's some magma or something like that flowing at the base of this ravine inside of this cavern. And as they are looking around, Zar goes,
Friend Stardom, I hear skittering? Skittering is not good, my friend. There are glorburbs around.
And what, might you ask, is a glorburb? Well, let me tell you. Urin Stardoom looks around and he sees down in that ravine are more of those quartz crystals that he sees on the walls. Except they're not just quartz crystals. They seem to be undulating. And then he sees a glorburb. And that is a 10-legged centipede-like creature with this nasty carapace and maybe like some sort of acidic ooze that is dripping off of it. Comes climbing up over the edge of this ravine onto the ledge of the cavern that they exited from the tunnel. And it takes one look at Urin Stardoom, and it's just like... And Urin's like, oh boy, that is a glorburb. Yep, okay, all right, we can do this. And he raises up his rifle and he takes aim and he's going to fire at it. Now, we could go ahead and use the combat rules for this and take this in rounds. But because Urin is in this alone, and this is something I didn't quite realize my first session, we can use challenges, which are basically you need to get a series of successes in order to complete a challenge instead of the sort of base combat system for solo play. So why don't we use that, as this is going to be a challenge. And unfortunately, because I rolled a 5 on my risk check, this is perilous. So a perilous challenge requires 8 successes. So he raises up his rifle and he takes aim at this glorburb that just crawled over the ledge, and he's gonna dig as he fires at it. And we are going to go ahead and unleash our dexterity D8. Here we go. An 8 is as good a success as you can get, and this is not in the rules, but I think that I'm going to rule that if I max out the die, I'm going to get an additional success on this. So we're going to mark that down as 2 successes as he dig at this thing, and it whizzes through the air and it hits the carapace, and there's this loud cracking sound as it bursts through the carapace of this creature, and the glorburb sort of like thud as it hits the stone. And Urin very dramatically chambers another round in his rifle with a smirk. And he's like, "That's a glorburb down." And he's feeling pretty confident until he looks around and he realizes that Czar is back in the tunnel cowering. And where there was once the sound of one glorburb, there is now the sound of more. As these sounds begin to echo through the chamber, Urin's like, "I may have bitten off a little bit more than I can chew. Okay, no, it's all right. It's all right. It's all good. We got this." He slings down his rifle. He pulls up that mining laser that he's been carrying around, and he's going to go, "Dig," and he's going to fire it off at a couple more of these glorburbs as they're charging in at him. This will be a D6. A 5, which is another success. Decrement that die. So that takes us up to 3 successes as he fires this off, and this laser beam shoots through the room and hits a couple of these other creatures. And there's more of this terrible, horrifying screeching as the smell of burnt bug begins to fill the cavern room. And I have a question for the Oracle. The question is, does Urin get some help? And I'm going to roll a d12. I'm going to say it's almost certain. And I'll tell you why. I rolled a 6, which is a yes and. So the reason I rolled an almost certain is because of that advancement that I rolled earlier. Urin gets aid from someone from his past. And that someone from his past, I think, is his former partner. The former partner from the Hunters Guild. So let's find out who that is. Urin's standing his ground with this mining laser. He fires it off, and then across the way, he hears another shot. And this shot, it hits another glorburb that was starting to crawl up the wall, kind of above and behind him. And the glorburb hits the ground with a thud. Urin turns and looks across to the other side of the chasm, and he stares in confusion and wonder as he sees this tall, willowy figure in scout armor with a long rifle in their hands. And this figure gives him a brief wave, and he just stares across and he goes, "Zelphia Stillrose, what are you doing here?" Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures, and thanks so much to Tabletop Audio for the lovely ambient sounds and music throughout the episode. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word, and if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, I'm at Errant Solopod on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.